Hey guys, Pointer512, and hopefully this audio works because if it doesn't, that would kind of suck. And then also, I tried recording my last audio, and then like my mom came in the room and then said my name, so it kind of ruined the whole recording. So guess what? I have to do this all over again, and I wish I could kind of replicate what I said last time because what I said last time was a lot better. The reason I'm making this video is that somebody requested that I do a sort of tutorial on War of the Djinn hard difficulty, and I thought, well, anyways, hard is pretty much the same as medium in terms of the combat phase, because you just pretty much walk around and kill all the djinns that you encounter and stuff, and then you get the lamps. But the main difference is actually the build, because the build requires a lot of complexity, and it's a huge step up from medium, because in medium, I was able to just use Squire in Monk Towers, and then I made a tutorial on medium difficulty War of the Djinn, which, by the way, I'll put a link to in the description. But, yeah, like I said, hard is a huge step up from medium. War of the Djinn on hard difficulty requires thought in the sense that the first two waves tie together to form a massive build phase. The djinns have a lot more health, and if you're using the same defenses that you would use for medium, you wouldn't be able to hold your ground and everything would shatter. However, I actually haven't tried it, so if you would want to test that build with your level 70s on hard difficulty and see how it goes, I'd be happy to know how it works out. I know I can use my build on medium for hard difficulty with my level 90 towers though, because when you have level 90 towers with like 900 stats, then yeah, of course you could use that medium build on hard. Anyways, for the build phase can get pretty complicated like I said before, but it could also get complicated in the sense that the build that works for me may not work for you, or maybe the build that works for me may not be the build that you would prefer to use. You have to think of the auras and the harpoons, or whether you would even want to use harpoons. I used a combination of harpoons, fireball towers, and one bowling ball tower turret for the whole build. And there is reasoning behind the fireball towers, and that is to fulfill the effect of the Inferno trap, which I would typically place in Morago. The reason I decided to change it to fireball is because I didn't like the obnoxious amount of noise that the Inferno traps made, and I thought that having those Inferno traps would distract me from my overall goal, which was to rub the lamps. However, I did end up using Inferno and Gas Traps in this build. I just didn't place them right where the lamps were. I placed them farther out from where my main choke points were, so that it would save my aura durability and also just help kill mobs more, and then I could focus more on the djinns, so that was always good. You could always find a way to integrate traps, and traps are very good. You should honestly use them, but you could also place your inferno traps however you want. I mean, for me, it was based on location. If you want to place them right next to the lamps, you could. I just don't recommend it since I feel like it would be harder. But anyways, the build is completely up to you, and whatever works for you, you should honestly use it. Um, and then now onto what I think about the auras. Concerning the auras, I like just the electric and the ensnare auras, and I didn't see a need for strength drain auras because the type of blockades that I was going to use was the magic blockade, and with my stats, I was certain that the defense would hold up, especially with all the physical towers to back it up, such as harpoons and fireball towers. If you think your defenses will hold up, you shouldn't place strength drain auras. In my opinion, you shouldn't place strength drain auras at all because of how ridiculously expensive they are, and that you could always just use it on another harpoon or fireball turret, something which would help eliminate enemies anyways and keep them away from your blockades. Strength drain auras in general are just totally not worth it, like I said, because it just takes up way too much DU, and anybody who uses them is being too cautious, because the amount of towers that you will have already concerning the ensnare, electric, and the harpoon and the fireball and stuff, it should be enough. And also, if you're going to use traps, that would help too. And then, so in my opinion, yeah, you should just use the ensnare and the electric auras. If you decide not to use ensnare and electric auras, I would think that's a bad idea, because if you don't have ensnare and electric auras, then you're basically just letting it all up to your harpoon towers and stuff, and the fireball towers become useless because they can't damage some of the enemies. So, I mean, having the auras, it's really cheap and it's really affordable and it does its job really, really well. I mean, simply putting an ensnare and electric aura in front of everything that you didn't have an ensnare and an electric aura, it would totally work. It would make the build totally easier and makes everything possible. If you don't have auras, it's just dumb. It's just a dumb idea not to have those two auras, in my opinion. I mean, like, why wouldn't you have them? That's just what I think. I mean, if you want to have a build without auras, then go ahead, but I don't think you would survive, really. Because, again, those two auras are really, really valuable. And then, yeah, so that is pretty much the auras. And there are multiple types of blockades that you could use. You have a wide variety to choose from, but I would only look at two of those, and those two blockades are either bouncer blockades or magic blockades. And the reasoning for that is that the spike blockade is also a blockade, but it's just an expensive magic blockade, and it only deals damage when something hits it. So it would still take damage, but it's like, what's the point? Because you'll already have so many other auras and harpoon turrets shooting at it and whatever, so it'll pretty much be dead. You could just it's just a really expensive magic blockade. And then there's also the slice and dice blockade, but that's pretty much an expensive bouncer blockade because the bouncer blockade does its job, and it also provides knockback, so it knocks back all the mobs, which the harpoon turrets and the fireball turrets, if you have fireball turrets, could just clean it all up. It's totally fine. I mean, the two blockades that you would really need to consider are bouncer and magic blockades. If you like a strict wall, magic blockades are the best for you. But if you want a blockade that deals a little more damage, you could use the bouncer blockade. You should just be wary that the bouncer blockade costs 4 defense units each, so that could kind of add up to be 20 defense units if you use a minimum of 5, as in one at each choke point. And at the middle choke point, you might even need multiple because of how there are like multiple staircases and stuff, and it could get pretty weird. I mean, yeah, like I said, it all comes down to what type of build you would want to use. If you're fine with using bouncer blockades, go for it. And if you're even fine with using slice and dice blockades, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't. It's just that I personally don't see a reason why I would use it. But if slice and dice blockades are what you want to use to help you complete War of the Djinn and get your shai hood, then you're totally free to. And then also, more concerning the traps, you should also use traps because traps are really good. If you don't want to use traps and you could survive without traps, then yeah, I guess you could not use traps if you want to. But the Inferno and Gas Traps always work together like very well, and it acts as a filter to filter pretty much all enemies that come in, and the only enemies that you will see are fire-resistant enemies, and that occurs like, let's just say 25 or 30% of the time. So you're decreasing the amount of enemies that you have to deal with. So it ends up saving a lot of durability on your defenses. In general, you want a build to work, and you have the ultimate freedom to decide how it happens. It's just that you want your build to be able to stand up to enemies, and also if you happen to lose a defense, then you want the rest of the defenses to be able to still stand. You want your defenses to, in a way, be independent. So if you lose one defense, your whole defense doesn't crumble. Like, your defenses aren't dependent on this one blockade or this one aura. It should be, you should have, like, pretty much multiple plans on how it's going to go in case a disaster strikes or something. And I mean, honestly, like I said before, the first 2 build phases is just basically a gigantic think tank, and you have to think about how your build is going to work, and you're going to have to think if you like the build and if you have anything against it. I personally like the build I used. Right now we're 9 minutes and 30 seconds in. I'm not completely done with building, am I? No, I'm not completely done with building. Yeah, in the rest of this video, I'm going to show you how this build works out and stuff. So yeah, see you later. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And then also, don't forget that you could place like magic blockades because those are valuable for distracting djinns and stuff. And if you don't like magic blockades, then glitched magic blockades to distract the djinns, and you think it's like a type of glitch abuse, then yeah, you could always find a way around it. You could always play the legit way, which might be slightly painful, but you could always try it. There's nothing wrong with it. Anyways, see you later. That's me, Ponervow12, and the rest of this video is going to be me building, and I hope you got something out of this tutorial, and I hope it helped you. Thanks. Bye.